Going on,
Yeah,
man?
sure.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. I'm got 3 days left of 75 hard. Today is day um 73. So
Congrats, man. That's awesome. That's it's always a huge accomplishment.
it's something, right?
It's more than something, dude. Most people don't recognize it, but if you've done it, you've done it. And that's huge.
Yeah, like I mean, I've been writing about this a ton here lately, but like I feel this time around, I mean, this is my fourth, third, fourth, I don't know. I don't count how many times I've done it. Um time through the full 75 hard. I've done a bunch of like 30-day stints, done phase one 3 times. And this time around, it's like a bunch of different things have clicked for me. And I'm like a lot of learning education. And it's not necessarily the reading, like I do a ton of learning outside of what I read, but just the combination of like pulling a lot of stuff together through this last stint has been just super cool, man. Super cool.
That's awesome, man. You can see it. You can tell when we're talking. I can tell when we're talking, right? I've only done it once, 75 hard once, and I'm actually working to towards getting some of my teammates on board to jumping on it and doing it in the new year here. I want to complete the whole damn thing this time, the whole Live Hard program. But back to what I started with, you can tell that mental shift someone's going through, right? And you can tell when like you're a laser focused son of a bitch these days, right? And not that you weren't before, but there's a notable difference, right? And I don't really know how to explain it. And if you've never actually done it, you probably can't understand it. But there's a definite difference in how someone walks, talks, acts, thinks, everything.
The difference too in this time around that I've been super diligent on, and not that I again haven't before done it in various ways, but is like I've combined this go round with being very diligent, intentional with the power list. And that's been something that has really accelerated it. And like one of the things has been, is writing as much as I do, putting content out as much as I do, and to be consistent on like that. So like my power list, I 75 hard is one line item, 500 words is another line item. Then I have three that kind of rotate on a daily basis with all the stuff that I'm doing. Sometimes it's coding, sometimes it's sales letters, sometimes it's, you know, dealing with bullshit stuff, that are, I mean, it's not bullshit because it made the power list, but, like things that just need to get done and off the list, right? Not necessarily the things that come up in a day, but, various other things that need to move the needle one way, shape, or form. And so my going through 75 hard and like, you know, there've been times like here in the last couple weeks, like my back's been all messed up. So it's like an outside walk and stretching combined with, some weightlifting, like what I can do. And but that's like the whole deal, right? Like I did walk and then I think I did maybe two walks and like I could barely move. Like the whole walk was in pain. I did, half a mile less than I normally do. But again, like it's just getting out there and doing it, in the rain, in the cold, in the whatever weather happens to be. And so even though it's just like a walk right outside, it's those little pieces, but I've never viewed it as like I got to do this. It's like, some of my, workouts, which a lot of it has been just stretching because I'm such a tin man. So a lot of yoga, a lot of like flexibility work here lately. And that's just what it has needed to be to like function as a person. And I think we one forget that, but two, like, it might be 9, 10 o'clock at night, but my outdoors already done for the day. It's not like I'm going and walking like outside. So a lot of it's planned, but man, I've realized that I have a lot more to go, a lot more to do, a lot more to accomplish, and I'm involved in a lot of stuff, like I don't talk about half the shit I do in public. So, like what you see is what I decide to talk about, and that's just a big part of it. Like I do a lot of other stuff behind the scenes for a lot of people, and so like you you just talk about what you do, but again, like doing the powerless has allowed me to stay on track with all the things that I'm involved in, and I think we forget like those simple pieces, right?
So I want to touch on your workout comment, but I want to get back to the powerless too. So don't let me forget. But the workout component is huge, man. And that's been my biggest challenge with convincing or trying to drum up enthusiasm for people on my team to do this with me is everybody still thinks that 75 hard is a fitness challenge. And I can tell them till I'm blue in the face. I can send them the podcast episodes to listen to. I can buy them the book. And until you actually do it and get, you tell me, I've done 75 hard. I did phase 1, I did phase 2. Until you get like 20, 25 days in, like that's for me when it started like clicking, like when the mental aspect really kind of took over and it was like, holy shit, things are firing on in ways they never did before. But to try and convince someone of that it's not just a workout program. It's not about losing weight. That's a byproduct of it. That's a beneficial byproduct of it for sure, but that's not the point of it, right? And I guess going back to what you were saying, like you have to be fluid enough and willing enough to know that your workout, your 2 workouts a day rather, they don't have to be just lifting weights, right? It can be a walk, it can be stretching, it can be yoga, it can be swimming, it can be anything you do intentionally to get your ass moving and do something that on a normal day, if you didn't have these tasks looming about you, you probably wouldn't commit to doing it. And I don't know, we just had a conversation with one of our guys yesterday, actually. And he was like, I'm fine with myself. I'm fine with my physical body. I don't want to change. And it's like, fuck, that's not the point. Like, I'm not coming at you as an employee, especially saying like, yo, you need to lose some weight. That's not what I'm here for. Right. But it's the other benefits of the program that are so huge. I just don't know how to sell it. I can sell a lot of stuff to a lot of people, but I have not been able to, by and large, sell 75 hard to my team, especially.
I mean, the hard truth is you don't live on it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, so for example, so for me, like, and to the workout piece, like, so here's like what I would consider like a bitch workout. I checked the box, I got it done, mainly because I had basically no other time in the day to do it. But like the clock starts as soon as I get in an airport, like for my indoor, right, for the day. Clock starts as soon as I get in an airport. I'm standing in line, like doing calf raises and like, I probably look weird as shit doing it. And then, just pacing like the airport terminals. Right. So now I've got like probably 20 pounds on my back and, carrying 2 laptops and all the shit that I carry and books and whatever else. Right. So like, that's like probably one of the weakest workouts that I've done to like check the box. I'm intentional about it. I don't know how many calf raises I end up doing, but it's just like standing there in line and like, well, I need to move and I can't walk. So this is what we're doing, right? In the security line or whatever. And I know because I have 30 minutes once I get past the gate. I'm going to be in this line for whatever, and I'm going to miss my like boarding. I'm going to delay it 5 minutes and not get as great a seat because I fly Southwest. And so like, it's what it is, right? To get it in, because I knew my windows were like that tight to get through. So to the workout piece, like, yeah, it doesn't have to be like over the top every single time. The bigger point is intentionality, right? Like I'm intentionally doing this instead of just like standing there like a schlep in line. I'm, intentionally doing something. And then to like the bigger point of like selling it to your team. So like for me, like one of the bigger ones probably that has happened or that I've noticed is because again, when you're on this or you do big stints of like not drinking, is really the biggest, that's the hardest one for me is drinking. And so
Without a
like,
doubt.
yeah, it's not like, and everybody's got their thing, right? You could be like illiterate, that's a problem. But whatever, like the thing that's hard for you, and it's going to be like some people, it's a progress picture. I don't know how that's hard, but for some people it is,
Yeah.
right? Some people it's the workouts. Some people it's the diet, right? They can't stay away from sugar cookies. Some people it's drinking. Some people it's the water, right? Whatever that thing is for you, and it's going to be different for everybody. Like everybody's hard is their hard, right? And no guilt one way or the other about any of this stuff. And so like for me, in having associated so heavily with drinking, and I like enjoy it, I've worked for especially living in Louisville, like I got to understand bourbon. Now living in wine country, I understand wine, and you get to have an appreciation for it. And then like we have a winery 20 minutes from us that has an incredible view, all those things, right? With that, because I've associated so much of my life with drinking, to then not is a huge shift for a lot of people, right? Like, and I was just reflecting on this. Like, I remember maybe probably 6 years ago, like I'd be home for Christmas and like we'd have my dad and I would like have a beer at noon, right? And we lived in one of those small towns where the firehouse does their noon whistle. And so like you knew when it was noon, right? Okay, time to crack a beer. And like that would be the holidays. And now, like, because, and especially this holiday where I did 75 hard through the holidays, like I'm not drinking. And so like I've noticed too in doing these long stints over the last 3-4 years of not drinking, like my dad doesn't drink as much anymore. And other people like that, one of my buddies who is a functioning alcoholic, like did 30 days sober just to do it, right? And so just to prove to himself that he had control over it. And then he enjoys it and he still does good at his job, and okay, whatever, man. But again, he proved that he could do it, right? Because I set that thing, right? I just said that I did this. And so the example is more than just promoting a program or a deal. And this is why like Andy gets as many people on it as he does, is because he shows like going to work out in 0-degree weather, right? And snow and blizzard and a tornado and all this other stuff, and or super hot. Like it's more the example, not the promotion of the program. So and that's like the harder thing to go through. And then when you do go through it, and everybody's going to have their different revelations. Like for me, because I'm an endurance athlete, like the first few times through the program, it like, sure, whatever, I did it. It was a checkbox for me. It wasn't like what it is now, because I've combined it with a power list and I've been consistent on doing a lot more than just 75 hard. Like it's doing writing and being consistent in that, to where I now have like 1,500 people in 3 weeks on a LinkedIn online newsletter, right? Like that's pretty insane. But again, it's because I wrote daily. And before that, there's just a ton of articles. So, and then, programming and getting other code done and like getting new solutions out, becoming better at sales letters, learning more from the right people, getting, reading more prevalently, thinking about stuff more, aligning my day to figure out when I work out best and all that kind of stuff. Like, as much as I would love to wake up early, I'm not one of those people. Like I can do it, I just don't function that well. Like getting up at 7 is good with me. Start my day with 2 hours, like reading and drinking coffee and thinking about shit is a much better start to my day. A noon walk with my dogs, and then an afternoon, evening, like workout, run, lift, whatever it happens to be, spin class, that like suits me better. So you're gonna find out like you're a morning person, you get up at, the ass crack it on, and that's just how you function better than in life. And so like everybody's going to find their cadence, and none of it's right or wrong. It's just what do you do with the hours that you're awake?
That's just it. And you figure out how to do everything in that time period that you have to do. It's always amazed me when I've been on phase how much time you can actually build, how much time you can actually create when you put your damn mind to it. And you have a set amount of stuff you got to get done in a day, no matter what. And that's always that's another big complaint is, well, I'm so busy. How am I going to fit in all of this extra stuff, these 2 workouts and the water and the reading and whatever else? And it is, time is what you make it, you know, and you find your own level, right? You wake up at 7. I wish I could do that, man. I wake up at 4:30, but that's what I have to do. And that's how my days go great. Like December, admittedly, has been a utter shit show for me on a personal performance level. I got sick in very early December, and that threw me, man. For 6 months, I was up at 4:30, lifting every day, and shit was firing on all cylinders. And all of a sudden, like, this kind of derailed me. And so
Yeah, I
I
mean,
can
I also
see
go to
it.
sleep at like midnight, so
Well, that's just it, right? I'm an old man, dude. I'm in bed. I'm tired by 9 o'clock, and usually I'm in bed before 10.
yeah, I'm usually in bed, but I'm like either going through stuff, I'm reading, I'm writing, I'm watching TV, like, but I'm just up until midnight. Like I function well late too. So, but again, that's the whole time thing anyway.
That's how I used to be. And now the only time I'm up that late is if I'm drinking, to be quite honest with you. And that's that's beside the point here, kind of counterintuitive. So, but you find what works for you, man, and you figure out how to make all of your shit fit within that window of time that you choose to be awake. And it's not like, I'm not saying that like I'm some superhero, right? Like you just pointed out, my day starts at 4:30, but it ends at 9. That's just how it works for me. That's how it works for my family. And that's what I've come to realize is like my productive hours are boom. And with kids on my end, like it's always been okay that if I can get up early before the house is awake and chaotic, I can get shit done and I can really rock and roll. And you find whatever works for you, you know, but
Yeah.
you got to find it. You got to force yourself to find it.
Yeah.
But
And I mean, yeah, power list.
powerless. So, and I don't want to spend the whole time today, you know, blowing Andy as much as I like him, but the power list, for those of you that don't know what it is, it's a tool created by Andy Frisella. It's basically a way of prioritizing the five things you need to do in any given day to move your needle, whatever that is. And I'm probably explaining it worse than you will, but my problem has always been, so when Andy explains it, he's got 5 things today he has to accomplish, and when he's done with that, he's done. And they're 5 major tasks. It's not a to-do list, but they're major things that push his business or personal fitness or relationships or whatever it is. They push things forward. And when he's done with it, he's done. And I love that mentality, but this is where I wanted to kind of pick your brain and see how you do it, because I've never been able to do that, which is why I go very sporadically in using the power list, because I'll have my 5 things and I can prioritize, I can create high value shit that I have to get done the next day that will truly move my needles forward. But then I finish them, I'm like, I look at my email or I look at my actual to-do list, and it's like, well, all right, I can't actually stop now. And then it becomes almost burdensome, right? Because now it's taken my impossibly long to-do list and adding more things to it. So when you were on it, do you stay disciplined to those 5 things, and then when it's done, like it's fuck off time, or is it some hybrid of the two?
So yes and no. So here's the important nuance of what Andy talks about. You got to remember and understand where Andy is today, right? So as a dude with, however many people they have in their HQ, 400 people, right? At old HQ 4 years ago, whatever, 50 people. So his day is, yeah, he's got email. I think now he doesn't even read it. Like if you got to go through other channels besides email to get to him, right? He just doesn't do it anymore. So for like us who are still in the building phase of a team and like gatekeepers and where we're handling our own shit, that is just what happens in a day, right? That's just like you deal with it right as it comes, right? A phone call from your superintendent, email from a client, a planning meeting, right? But like in a given day, like that planning meeting, so with the power list, it's all shit that you control, right? So like this podcast is never, it used to be a powerless item. It is not now, right? Because I can't control, I mean, I guess I could to a point, right? But I can't control like if you got sick or if something else happened to where it couldn't be recorded with the both of us, that is out of my control now. So it's not a powerless item. But if it's something that I control, like, hey, do a solo episode to get posted for Tuesday or whatever, then that is a powerless item or can be a powerless item because it's something I can control. Right. And so whenever you're doing your powerless, it's not something that anyone else has any control over. Right. If you're meeting with somebody, that meeting cannot be a powerless item because that other person controls whether that meeting happens or not. Right. A sales call misses. That's not in your control. Right. It's scheduled, it's booked, but the email outreach to a new prospect, that is a powerless item. That is something you can control. My 500 words, that is a powerless item. That is something I can control. Me writing a proposal, that is something I can control, right? Me making outbound calls, outbound emails, outbound whatever, me dealing with lawyers or tax filings or whatever in sending outbound to somebody, all of that is in my control, right? Mail a letter, whatever it is, like that, all that stuff is in my control. That's the same with 75 hard, right? That is in my control. To like yesterday, like I had to do some people owe me money. So like I had to write some
To break some
demand
ankles.
letters. Yeah. So like like write a demand letter, you know, like so yesterday's was 500 words, write a demand letter. Um, you know, create a tag all function or in my program Sheets Made Simple, which is awesome, by the way. And then find some training courses for some offers that I'm working on and sales scripts and that kind of stuff. Number 5 was 75 Heart, right? And then like I had a bonus item. Like if I got to it, great, but it was like I just made a note of it. Hey, work on this sales script. And so, but that's a bonus item. Like I didn't get to it, but I still won the day, right? It like came to mind. I put it on the list and it gets done. And then I try to write the power list for today, like the night before. So in doing that, what I also find is when I write that list the night before, I'm like, well, shit, I can just knock that thing out here in the next 5 minutes. And then I, you know, come up with another item or whatever or do it, but all of it has to be in your control. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up. And then they're like, here lately, again, I've been working till like 10, 11. So from the time I get up at 7 a.m., outside of my 2 workouts, you know, like which most of the time I'm on calls or listening to podcasts, like it's not an unproductive piece of time. Like it's typically multitasking through all of those things. So in that time block, I have from the time I get up till the time I go to bed, like it is straight work. So like I don't, it's all work related. It's education. It's that, but everything again is in my control. Like if someone doesn't make a sales meeting, cool. I'll knock out something else during this time period. So when we think about the powerless, it is that. And then here lately, again, I got so much shit going on that I work a lot, and I love it. So I'm super happy about it. But there are other days where I'm done with everything at 5 o'clock. Like, cool, right? Like, and because I'm on the West Coast where a lot of shit's on the East Coast, like at 2 o'clock, I don't get any more email from anybody. So I don't have to worry about anything typically after 2, 3 o'clock. And so if I get all my power list done, like 75 hards done, or I got some water left to drink, whatever, like my day's done at 5 o'clock. Like I can dick around, like I can watch TV till I go like till I fall asleep for 6 hours, right? And then the thing too in there, and this is where I think a lot of people really fall short and in there, and this was me, where you get all your stuff done, you kicked ass all day at 5 o'clock, and then you fuck it up at 7 p.m., right? You start drinking, like you're bored, all that other stuff, like ruins your whole momentum. And then you wake up hungover or whatever else on the other side of that. So for a lot of people, they do great through the day and then ruin it like at night, right? And so a lot of my like mantra here for the last 20 days is like, just don't mess it up. Don't screw it up. I've done like awesome. And then it's just like, if I get my stuff done, cool, don't mess it up. Right. So then I drink tea at night. Like I go through a gallon of tea at night or whatever, liter and a half of tea, because it's something to drink so I don't screw my program, or I drink bubbly water or whatever else to not screw the program. So a lot of things that I end up doing is to just not mess it up in the day rather than like getting it right or anything else. It's to not screw it up. And that's more like we end up, it's the not doing of things, right? The not drinking, the not having that cookie, the not whatever, that ultimately is our downfall, not necessarily like the positive side of that, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. It's idle hands are the devil's workshop, right? And I think that's everybody's biggest problem. If you get to that point where you're done at 5 o'clock and you just plop down on the couch and you let fate have its way with you, it's going to be a lot harder, regardless of whether you're doing 75 hard or just trying to be healthier or whatever, trying to not watch so much TV, right? If you don't keep yourself busy, you're going to end up having a bigger struggle. I think that goes along with people getting towards retirement, right? There's so many guys and people, guys, especially in my industry that I know that are at that point now. They're like, all right, well, I'm going to retire, but in retirement, I'm going to start another company and do this, and this, because I can't just sit still. I don't want, people recognize, high achieving people recognize that the second you start just sitting still and putting it into neutral is the second you start dying. And if you're not keeping yourself busy, you're not keeping your head engaged, you're not doing things to, you can do them at a different level, right? And you can certainly scale back and do things at a different speed or to a different capacity. But if you're not keeping yourself busy to some degree, it goes pretty fast, right? And we've all seen that. Like the guy who works his whole life and then finally retires and decides he's going to do nothing but, fish all day or whatever, and he's dead in 3 years. Fuck all that. I don't want anything to do with that. But it's just a mindset thing, right? Doesn't matter if you're doing 75 hard or not. You and I know the value of the program, and whether we can convince others by doing it or not doesn't really matter. But it's a focus on your own personal mindset. Whatever program, whatever theory or systems you want to use, you got to keep your mind sharp, and you got to be mentally tough to make it in this industry, but really in this world, right? It's getting harder by the day with everything going on around us and everything that's coming to light now with government and politics and shit that's going on behind the scenes that we truly have no control over. Whether we want to think we do or not, we can raise our voices, we can scream and yell, but the thing we can control is right between here. And if you can keep your head straight and tough and on the right track, you can do amazing things regardless of what is going on around you.
I mean, again, like this is where, like when we talk about power list type stuff, right? So let's make this situational. So you're a GC and you're superintendent, right? Let's just say you're superintendent out on job sites. And so with that, like you have a power list of the 3 vendors you need to reach out to that day, right? And in that, like because you need to reach out to all these guys and do all this other stuff, like those are the 3 of your power list items. Let's say that you're not yet on 75 hard. So 75 hard isn't necessarily a line item, but what ends up being a line item is I need to work out today, right? That's one line item. So you have 3 outreach to vendors, right? To keep the relationship, whatever, or follow up on something that's not part of maybe your normal day. Or you want to reach out. Let's say you need to talk to, maybe it's a vendor, a subcontractor, and one of your team members, right? Hey, let me send an email, shoot a text, a thoughtful note to one of the guys, on my team. Let me do that to my vendor, and let me do that to a subcontractor. Cool. All right. So that's 3. Another one is it maybe one of those are a client, right? Let's just say 3 outreaches, each one a line item to 3 different people. And then the other thing too is you can keep those 3 things on your list for full 75 days, right? Like you're just going to reach out to somebody different every single day for 75 days. That's maybe it's a client, maybe it's a vendor, maybe it's a subcontractor or a partner, maybe it's a team member, right? And thoughtful, meaningful communication, right? Phone call, whatever, but you initiate it. The next one is, work out, right? Let's just say that you're not on 75 hard. Work out and read. 5 things, right? That still means you could have a drink at night if you wanted to. It still means you could eat like shit, but you have 5 things that are going to improve you in, 3 are in business, right? And making contacts and doing meaningful outreach, personal in your body, right? I'm going to work out and then read. And that could be listen to a podcast, listen to a book. Again, if you're starting, like this is a place to start. This isn't where you need to be, but this is a starting point. And those pieces for a power list of yourself, like you're going to get better physically, mentally, and in business, right? Finances. I've had power list items where it's like, take my wife out for dinner and make sure to put my phone away and be present. Like that's a power list item, right? And so don't overthink it, but be intentional about what those pieces are, right? Like what is important to you is, and maybe we're, going out for drinks or dinner or whatever, but I can go out to dinner and still be on my program, like, but I write down like, take Lauren out and be present. Like that can be a power list item.
Frankly, that's a good one for probably most of us.
Yeah, I mean, divorce, you lose half your shit. So like, it's it's important to have, not like I jokingly say that, but like it's important to have a good relationship, right? If my home front wasn't like it is to where I can work as much as I do, granted I work from home, but like where I'm around and like letting her know about stuff and everything, but I would not be able to work as much as I did if I didn't do those things on occasion.
Yeah, man. If your house isn't in order, nothing in your life will be. Period. And I would beg somebody to try and prove me wrong, and I guarantee they can't. On a kind of a lighter note, so one of my notes here was, so as I've told you personally, I think I may have said it in the podcast or not, but I finally made the transition to buying out my previous business partner. This happened back in August, but then there's been this kind of slow trickle of changing things from August until the 31st of the year, when my old business partner then will officially be quote unquote retired from the construction company. You mentioned divorce a minute ago. I was ignorant to what this actually meant and all the shit that has to happen to clean up this break, right? And it's an amicable divorce that we're going through, right? We agreed upon this. It's working out in both of our favor, but like it's not just split the things in half. It is everything, and it's things that like keep popping up every day, like ownership of the credit cards, email accounts, key man life insurance policies that frankly we forgot we even paid for still. Like there's just this huge list that has come to grow of all this stuff that has to be taken care of and has to be either split or canceled or renamed or repurposed. And I'm not complaining about it, but man, it's nothing I was prepared for. Like I just assumed like, it's cool. We're just going to go our separate ways and I'll keep kicking ass over here and he can go do his own thing. And it's just become this giant administrative function of shit. And it's been crazy, good crazy, but it's nuts.
I mean, it goes to show like what keeping your books in order like means, right? And keeping detailed records of all that stuff. Like at some point, because I've run things a lot looser than I should.
Oh yeah.
At some point, I know like that process of getting accountants involved and everything else is going to be very painful.
Yeah, I mean, we've been pretty good on that end over the last 5 years. I kind of cleaned house, got rid of all of our consultants that were just there collecting exorbitant fees because they'd been there for the previous 20 years and they never got questioned. So I say we lightly, I kind of washed that whole regime out, and we've got a really good team of consultants in place to help us, but it's all the minutia, right? Like just these things that you don't think about on a daily basis, like the cell phone account, right? We've probably had this cell phone account for 15 years, and it's not as easy as just like, well, yeah, just take your number, port your number out of here, and sayonara. Well, no, like now it's got to go through different credit checks and different names put on it, and the credit cards themselves, right? They're corporate cards, but at the end of the day, they're tied to either me or him, right? If the ship goes belly up, you can't just transfer that shit. I've learned. Like I thought, okay, change the name, run my credit, put me on it. No, it doesn't work like that, and they are less than helpful. We'll put it that way. When you're like, I need to cancel this card, but I'm starting another one. Same card, same everything. Just put my social security number on it. Nah, it doesn't go that easily. Like it's just this constant fighting. Like it's absurd to some degree. And thank God I'm not dealing with it by myself. I have quite a bit of help handling this on my team and at home here too. But man, it's just like all this little shit that I don't want to be thinking about. I've got big picture, big, huge things that I have to deal with from the business side. It's this little, like, we have it posted on our wall in our office. It's called the divorce list. And we just keep scratching off lines as we go through it. Like who's getting which part of the pie here and how do we move forward? But it's been a lesson, that's for sure.
Well, and that goes to show, like, for anybody that's working for a company out there, like, this is all the stuff behind the scenes that, like, just gets handled, that most people don't know or understand. And until you have to deal with, like, accounts payable and people paying their bills or not, like, what do you do? How do you get your money out of them? Right? Like, how do you, oh, you got to set up these accounts. Oh, like, this happened and it reduced credit, or like I need a line of credit, or like all the other stuff behind the scenes that, like, oh, we're changing vendors. Oh, the HR benefits company didn't do the shit that they needed to do, so nobody has insurance right now. Like, oh, that's a problem. Like, why didn't my insurance card work? Well, it turns out, somebody else didn't pay their bills. Like we paid them, but they didn't pay anybody. And like all this. So again, if you have a good gig, and I was too stupid to like know this when I quit, but um, all all those things that the company like takes care of for you, like health insurance and benefits, and you just get a paycheck, and well, that's all you got to worry about.
Oh, dude, it's everything. Like there's paper for the fucking printer, right? Your cell phone works. You have business cards in a box when you need them. You have pens. You have coffee in the coffee pot. Like all of the stuff, the rent's been paid. The lights turn on in your office when you flick the switch. Like I'm not complaining, right? I choose this life, but there's so much more to being a business owner than just the high level stuff that you and I talk about a lot. There's so much of this dirty, messy, like filthy underworld of owning this massive machine that people just don't think about. But if, like you said, if you don't take care of all of those aspects, shit's gonna go south real fast.
Yeah.
Real fast.
Well, and like, so an example is, well, so here's a couple. So even though, like, let's say again, superintendent, project manager, and you're dealing with like the paperwork on a job. Now magnify that to all the underwriting to do that job, all the bond work, all the financing, all the credit, all the agreements, all the partnerships, all the other stuff that you have to do, the financing for that truck that you drive, the trailer like that you're going to rent, the equipment rentals, right? And some person does some of that, right? An estimator might do pieces of it. Superintendent's going to run the job site, manage all those pieces, or making sure that, vendors get paid or subs or whatever, which is all well and good, right? And you think you can then handle the rest of it. It's just magnify that paperwork times 10, and that's, kind of what you come up to, and then deal with everyone else's bullshit, right? Every project that the company has to deal with. Now take your project and multiply it times however many projects are going on simultaneously. And that is what, an owner of a company or a principal in a firm, end up going through. You can handle it. You're just not going to handle it immediately, right? Like you build up to that tolerance of what's important, what's not, and then running the ship accordingly.
Well, and you got to build up that tolerance of once you realize that when you're the only guy or the only woman there, like at the top of the pyramid or the bottom, however you're holding it, when like it's your house that these people will come take if you fail on a bond or if you can't pay back your line of credit, like that's some shit to deal with mentally. And I don't think people shouldn't know what that's like, right? The entrepreneurs in our organization especially are so vitally important to me and to us. Like I don't want them to think about the rest of that stuff, but it's just funny when you have conversations, and it's just this time of year, right? There's a lot of housekeeping, even if big changes weren't happening. It's just what happens in the late end of the fiscal year. But man, it's you put all that shit on paper and the risk levels involved, and it's like I don't know how I sleep at night sometimes. I truly don't. And when you tell people about it, like you and I'll riff behind the scenes about this sort of stuff all the time, but you get it, right? If I sit down with like one of my brother-in-laws who they've got good jobs, they work for somebody else, they make good money, they get there at 8 or 9 o'clock, they leave at 4 or 5, and they don't think about shit about that business until they go back the next day. They look at me like I'm a maniac. Like, what do you mean you have to work over Christmas break? What do you mean you don't get the big 3 shutdown for 2 weeks? Like, why would you ever do this? And I've got my own reasons as you do, and I can explain it to them, but I don't know. I'm ranting a bit here because it's been one of those end of year processes that it's almost mind numbing at times, but it's good. It goes back to mental toughness, right? It goes back to what we started off today's chat with. You got to have your head straight. Otherwise this shit, among other stuff, will literally eat you alive. I can laugh about it now. And you and I can joke about it. I was going to say we could have beers and laugh about it. Maybe in 3 days we could.
Yeah. New Year's.
But you got to be able to be tough of mind, and you got to have intentionality on everything you do. Everything. You can't be in this industry without it. And then it doesn't matter if you're an owner or an employee, an entrepreneur, whatever path you choose. This is a rough and tumble industry, man. And it always has been, it always will be. You got to get your head straight.
Yeah. And let's end this episode on this is, as tough as you might think your piece is, your role, right? Somebody's always got it worse, right? Somebody's always got it better. Somebody's always got it worse. You can find examples of that wherever. All you can control are the things that are in front of you today. That's it. You can't fix yesterday. Tomorrow's not here yet. All you have is today. All you have is right now, right? It's always just a string of moments. What you say, what you do, what you eat, what you think, right? All of that stuff matters. And so, and this is we'll get into this on the next episode too. But is now is the time to think, in this time of year, to think about what you want for your future, right? That's what everybody's talking about. But you have to still make that choice consciously every single day, right? Not just the end of the year, not just the last 2 weeks of December, not just the first 3 weeks of January when you think about this stuff, like in shit goes out, at spring break, right? You got to keep a conscious effort on what you're doing, where you're going, and do that daily. And again, that doesn't matter what your position is, just be the best at what you are with where you are, right? So if you're again superintendent, I keep using this example, but if you're superintendent, be the best superintendent you are today. You know, you can be. Do your job to the best of your ability, and if you have the inclination to take on more responsibility, you will be that vice president, you will be that COO, you will be that CEO, whatever you want to be within that organization, right? You might just be better at operations than you are at sales. It's the only difference there. So whatever path you want to take, just be intentional about where you are today, and that will put you on the path to ultimately where you want to be. And that's all you can control. But make sure that whenever you do this, it's all in your control. Because if you do things that are out of your control, it's just setting you up for failure, disappointment, and reliance on other people.
Amen to that, brother. I think we're good, dude. I think we wrapped up a hell of a year of recording. Just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. This one we'll post before New Year, and we'll be back next week to kick off another year. So share the damn show.
Thanks, guys. Happy New Year. And I'll be celebrating with some wine, hopefully. And we'll talk to you guys in 2023.